This is All India Radio. In our special program, now we bring you a discussion on Prime Minister's call for 10 lakh job creation in next 18 months. The participants are Shivaji Sarkar, political analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent.
In a crucial announcement, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has asked various government departments and ministries to undertake the recruitment of 10 lakh people on a mission mode in the next year and a half. Can you tell us what is the significance of this announcement?
This has been virtually the concept of the government to provide employment for quite a long time. And now you see this coincides especially with the government celebration of its 8th year and also the Amrit Mahotsav. And jobs, of course, because of the pandemic and many other issues, there has been a problem of recruitment for the government also. And now the government has taken the decision of the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs that the government needs to provide jobs to the youth, because if the country has to proceed without the jobs for the youth, it can't proceed. So you see, it has been, of course, announced by the Defence Minister that 40,000 Agnipath recruitment, that is a short-term recruitment of youth for the three forces, Army, Air Force and Navy, would be done. And the government has announced they should be savvy on electronic affairs and IT issues and many other technical issues. And they will be on short-term jobs for 4 years, and they will be getting from 4 lakh to 6 lakhs a year. Plus, as they move out of the job, they will get a very good package of almost 12 lakh rupees. And in case of any eventuality, their families will get 1 crore rupees. So this is the basics that the Defence Minister announced. And this will, of course, modernize the army and also bring down the expenses on the army also. And it is not that all of them will be just checked out. On 25% of them will be, of course, recruited for the regular forces. And then you see Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, it decided that there has to be more jobs in every sector, in every ministry. And that is what, of course, is being worked out, how much it will be and how it can be done. So 10 lakh jobs that have been done. Some people may say that is a slightly harder job, but it is exactly not so. If you look at Rajya Sabha questions that were answered on February 3, 2022, Ministry for Personnel, Jitendra Singh announced that there were 8.72 lakh vacant posts already in the various central government departments. It also announced that almost 2 lakh recruitments were also made during 1920 and 2021 through UPSC, Staff Selections Commission, Railway Recruitment Board and other modes. So you see, the jobs are there and the government is only trying to streamline the issues, how it can be done. There is another announcement by the government some time back which says actually there are 30 lakh sanctioned posts under the central government. Sanction doesn't exactly mean that there has to be recruitment. Sanctioned, of course, there are many ways to do it. So there are lots of jobs that are vacant. I believe this 10 lakh jobs is only the first chance that the government has announced, because without the jobs growth part, that gets affected. You see, basically what happens, once one is in a job, one is in an employment or any kind of occupation, then there is an income. And when one has an income, then he also spends. So this is spending and income and all these kinds of is a cycle. So this cycle, when they spend, they also go for purchases, many kinds of purchases that are done, and that gives a boost to the manufacturing and various other sectors. So I believe the government has taken a very prudent decision, and I believe in the next few months or so, government will be definitely appointing many more people who will be very useful for the government. So the job will give a boost to the entire growth process that the government has chalked out. There is another problem government is also facing is the high inflation, the problem of war, and all these kinds are definitely not easy to tackle with. But in that kind of a situation, manpower is also required. And this manpower will be virtually provided through these kind of recruitment. And quite often there are various people who criticize the government that it has not provided jobs. In fact, if you look at EPF figures, it says 2019-20 and even 2021, almost 7.39 lakh jobs in the non-government sector was also provided. So those who say that exactly the jobs are not being created, I think that is a slight exaggeration. The jobs are there, jobs are being created, and it is not only in the public sector and the government sector, but also in the private sector, jobs are there and jobs are being created. The way this is happening, it is definitely going to boost the economy.
So would you say that it's a virtuous cycle of jobs and economic development? Here we had, 2 years of COVID followed by the Ukraine-Russia conflict, which had its impact on the economy and also on employment. And there was criticism regarding unemployment also by various sectors. But now by giving this big push to employment, the government has supplemented its own efforts of increasing capital expenditure in the budget. It has supplemented its own efforts at encouraging the private sector to come out with more and more enterprises, startups, so that jobs are created at a small level also and people become job providers instead of job seekers.
Absolutely. You see, it is just not a one issue that is the government announced, but it is a cycle that it has announced. Government is aware of the problems that the COVID pandemic has created. Government is aware that there has been a terrible slowdown. In fact, the growth was almost 2 years back in minus 23.9%. That is almost 24% of a minus growth. So tackling through all those issues, it is not an easy job. There has been revenue issues also. Though, of course, of late, the government has made it up through better GST collections and other tax collections. But still, the kind of infrastructure push that it is giving, it needs a lot more finances also. And these finances, we can see almost all over the country, there is a spree of constructions and various other kind of development activities, rapid railing, roads, and many other kind of activity that is happening all over the country, that definitely is going to make a change to the COVID scenario. That was, of course, a very depressing scenario everybody had faced. And of course, rightly enough, there was a criticism from everywhere, as you pointed out, about the jobs not being created and people being rendered jobless also because of the COVID closures of various institutions and establishments, and everywhere there was a problem. So now what is going to happen, as I believe, and as of course, if you look at the RBI monetary policy report also, these all point out that there has to be an activity of economics at every level, and unless that happens, there would not be a proper growth that is being targeted. You see, presently the growth target is 7.2% that RBI has fixed up, but actual growth target has to be much more.
What would you say about what the Prime Minister has said, that these recruitments should be undertaken on a mission mode in the next year and a half? So giving this kind of a target, what is the significance of this? You feel that that is going to have much more impact on the morale and actually produce results?
I believe it should. I believe what Prime Minister means by the mission mode, because you see, quite often we have seen in many previous occasions that the government has announced and even gone through the procedure for recruiting people, but finally the recruitments are not being made. I believe what Prime Minister says that this time this should not happen. Once process has started, it goes to its logical end. That means those people who have been interviewed or shortlisted or whatever they selected, they must be appointed also. That is what I believe the mission mode is. Because otherwise, you see, quite often we have seen the appointment is perhaps for various reasons got stuck. So this time I believe that should not happen. And the mission mode means that the basics of the growth, especially for any country like ours, is based on how the youth is best utilized. This is, I believe, is the Prime Minister's plan to utilize the youth talent in the maximum way that it's possible and in the best possible manner that it can be done. And so, he doesn't want that there should be any kind of disappointment among the youth that they have gone through the process and this has again not happened.
So would you say that the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship would also play an important role in upskilling and reskilling the youth of the country, as you said, whether it is for the government jobs or whether it is for the private sector?
I believe it has to be. You see, government alone can be the provider of jobs. Government is, of course, key to give a boost to the process. But, of course, skill development is required. Various other kind of ministries, that standalone industries and various other modes that the government has already launched, that also needs to get a boost. Because you see, the government's mode is just for an Atmanirbhar Bharat. And Atmanirbhar Bharat also means that there will be more entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs themselves will not only employ themselves, but they would also provide employment. So whatever you have said is very correct. It has to all move in tandem so that in the next 18 months or so, by 2024, most of the unemployed youth that are there, they are gainfully employed and they are utilized for the entire growth process and development of the country. The entire process of that mission mode, and that Prime Minister is repeatedly saying, that will not reach to its own conclusion. So that is the mission, that the youth is utilized, the country moves on its growth path. There is a development, of course, at the most critical time when the inflation is very high. World Bank has said that there can be deep recession world over. There is a war in Ukraine, which may escalate or not, but of course we find there are the problems are at least escalating. And so in these kind of situations, because you see, India has the largest population and the biggest responsibility for keeping not only the country safe, but also it is key to the world growth. So in that process, the Prime Minister's step, I believe, would definitely give a total boost to the scenario, despite many problems the government may be facing and the country may be facing.
So you feel all the steps which are being taken, they are a harmonious synergy towards making the youth of the country, as you said, employable and boost the economic growth of the country, be it a national education policy which is trying to integrate vocational education and academic education, be it the efforts at upskilling and reskilling so that people become more employable according to the growing needs of the industry. You feel all this is woven together and that is what will help us achieve the economic growth which we aspire for?
Of course, what you have said is very correct, but expecting that all the synergies will act together, I think this is slightly a larger expectation. That it has to synergize, no doubt. But suddenly synergization doesn't happen. There is an effort of synergization. We can see that various ministries are working together. And not only ministries, various industries and all, they also have to stand together. But presently we do not find that the private sector is really coming to the full support of all the government efforts because they are also having their own problems. So there are issues. The national education policy that you said, yes, national education policy is giving a new thrust to the vocational education and kind of creating that education and the work that can go together like that, various issues, is very laudable that in that way government can achieve what it wants to give to the people, the jobs, the growth. You see, there is also a link with the agriculture also. Now, when we say agriculture, if you see the farmer's son who goes into agriculture, he's an educated son who understands the e-market also and various other kinds of IT processes. So those kind of issues also, when it's providing the jobs, these issues are also linked up. When you say skilling and reskilling, so there is a reskilling of the farmers also. So these various issues, when they come together, then we find that what we are aiming as a country, the government is aiming to provide best to the people, that comes together. Because you see, any gap anywhere can create problems. As we see in the electricity also, we have to scale up. So the government, I think, slightly, instead of going at a very fast pace, it should go on a rather staggered mode so that there is not a problem anywhere. Because you see, when you will be producing more electricity. That means you will have to put up power plants at various distant places. We have to provide more coal, and once virtually on the electricity, everything will be run. So that is, while may look very good, that is electricity at least cleaner in the cities, though it may be polluting, doesn't really reduce that carbon footprint. But we have to see that when you depend on one source, there is also a kind of, you see, industrial security that also has to be looked after. So I believe there should be a multimodal fuel system and support system that has to be always there for any industry or any country. That also government may have to build up. So there may be some gaps, you see, always. When you do something, there may be gaps. But those gaps, I think, would gradually be filled up.
So as you said, effort has to be multimodal. We have Startup India, Stand Up India, Digital India, various efforts. And we would like to thank you for giving the deeper perspective on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's announcement of recruitment of 10 lakh people on a mission mode in the next year and a half. Thank you so much, Mr. Sarkar.
Thank you, Mr. Sonu.
You were listening to a discussion on Prime Minister's call for 10 lakh job creation in the next 18 months. The participants were Shivaji Sarkar, political analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.